Right, back live tonight, you're in Focus. For more reaction on the Deep Kloof Hostel protests and the mayor's visit today, we are now joined by the city of Johannesburg IFP councillor, who really used to be the former Human Settlements MMC, Mlungisi Mabaso. So he will give us more details here on what has actually happened here. So let's start here. I mean, when the allegations, Mr. Mabaso, good evening, by the way, and thank you very much for coming on.
Good evening, Butabo, and good evening to the viewers at home.
So when the allegations of the misuse of the 230 million emerged, a statement was issued by the city of Johannesburg, signed by yourself, because I see it's your name there that is signed at the bottom to have said this statement. You're saying we didn't misuse the money. In fact, there was certain degree of work that was done. For example, you said in the Deep Kloof Hostel, 56 units were allocated and managed by Josco. Out of the 216 units constructed, 155 units were rehabilitated. Mzimhlophe units built were allocated and managed by Josco. No challenges. However, there are new units under construction and will be dealt with similarly with Dube, Meadowlands and Deep Kloof. This was in 2020. In 2023, we are coming in and we're saying, but this work has still not been done. What happened?
Well, thank you very much once again. What had happened is that the development in hostels was implemented by the provincial government. These projects were then handed over to the city of Johannesburg. And when they were handed over as community rental units. So all the beneficiaries were expected to pay the rent. And that's where we started in 2020 when I came into the office, where we were saying the units cannot be for rental, whereas you had your economic social surveys, which indicated that more than 80% of the residents in hostels were unemployed and could not afford to pay rent. So that's where we started, where we then tabled a report to the mayoral committee to say these units must be converted into RDP giveaway houses. And bear in mind that when I came in, the units at Dube Hostel and Meadowlands and Deep Kloof Hostel were already vandalized, and at Dube they were badly vandalized, and which then took us to start the process of rehabilitating those units so that they are able to be allocated to the rightful beneficiaries. But in the process of that, we then discovered that the services were not installed when these houses were constructed. And to our surprise, because when you start with the development, you start with the installation of infrastructure. So we had to go back again now and plan for the installation of infrastructure. At Meadowlands Hostel, we're going to upgrade the sewer because there is no sewer. The sewer that is there is too old and is dilapidated. So we had to go there and upgrade the sewer. So the process has to be started afresh. Together with Dube Hostel, there was also a challenge of a sewer, and it also spoke to the current existing sewer line for the existing units that needed to be upgraded. And at the Deep Kloof Hostel, there was an issue of electricity capacity, and there was an issue of water that we had to deal with. So that's where we had to begin. Hence, it then made us to delay the allocation, even in the units that we had completed, rehabilitating, because there were no services in those units. Even the electrification at Dube Hostel was to be done by us, because the one that was put at the time, when the units got vandalized, it got all damaged, and we had to start all that process afresh.
Yeah. If it was something, for example, that can be done from start to finish in 3 months, why did it take you so long? Because we are told now that this, for example, at Deep Kloof, this can be done in 3 months. The electrification and the water issues.
Well, the issue of the electricity in Deep Kloof, I will talk to that in a moment. But I want to say the delay in Dube and Meadowlands Hostel, the delay in the installation of the sewer line and upgrading the capacity, it was because of the planning process. So we had to start by, appointing a consultant, do drawings, submit to the planning department, wait for approval and all those things. So that takes time. Hence, we had to wait, and it delayed.
So hold on. The very same process that they're doing now, you're already done. Are they going to repeat the process that you've already done?
You know, I was surprised when they mentioned that even today, because that process started while I was still there, you know, as the MMC, and I don't know why it has not been completed. Even at Dubai Hostel, you know, Johannesburg Water was appointed in January to upgrade the sewer there, and it has not yet started, and I don't know what the process is right now. You know, I was really surprised when I heard that they are still there even today, because I had thought that maybe all those processes have been completed. But at the Kloof Hostel, here's the predicament. The contractor was appointed, the contractor went on site, he started, you know, putting in electricity, but, you know, it stopped. No explanation was given to the residents. You know, and that's why residents, in fact, you know, got frustrated and took it to the street, you know, because nobody explained to them why the contractor has vacated site, you know, without an explanation to the resident. So that contractor was introduced by myself. The contractor started working while I was still the MMC there. But few months out of the office, then the contractor stopped. So it's not the only contractor in the hostels that stopped when I left the office. The maintenance and the cleaning in hostels stopped, you know, a month after I left the office. So the hostels, you know, the cleaning service was not being conducted. Yeah. The maintenance was not done because I had left the office. Yeah. And that was the challenge. In fact, that's the hostel.
What do you mean by they stopped? Did they stop paying the contractor? Did they cancel the contract? How did they just stop? Because we are told, for example, they left and they went to Limpopo because there was an urgent situation of installing reticulation in Limpopo. That's why they didn't continue.
Well, my understanding is that the cleaning was terminated. You know, the contracts were cancelled because even the people that were employed within the hostel to do these cleanings, you know, were told by the contractors that they've been terminated by the implementing agent. With the Kloof Hostel, in fact, I do not have, you know, enough, you know, responses as to why the contractor has left. But the only thing I know is that the contractor said they did everything that was in their scope of work. So City Power then must then clarify to the residents of the Kloof as to what was the scope of work, because what we had agreed to with the service provider at the time and the residents when we went on to introduce the contractor was that the installation will also be done internally so that people do not do illegal connections or illegal wiring within their units. So I don't know what was the scope of work. I did not see the scope of work, but I really got worried when the contractor said we have done what was within their scope of work, and City Power was not there to clarify what scope of work was issued to the residents of to the contractor that was installing the electricity of the Kloof Hostel.
Yeah. In your time, what was the costing? How did you cost this project, and how much it's going to take?
Well, the budget that we had for the Kloof at the time, it was 18 million. So I don't know whether it escalated after that, but when the contractor was initially appointed, the money that we had for the Kloof Hostel was 18 million. And we said, because I also want to talk to the issue of water in the Kloof and the issue of toilets. Because we had said to them, when we met with them, they said they understand that they are waiting for development. The units have, you know, the structure, you know, has dilapidated. They understand that. But while they are waiting, the hostel is too dark. But two, they do not have, you know, toilets, and they have issues of water. And we said in the last financial year, we are going to put in the electricity. In this current financial year, we are going to put in the budget, you know, for us to construct, you know, toilets within the blocks, so that while they are waiting for a permanent development, at least they've got flushing toilet and they've got electricity. But, you know, it did not happen. And I understand, you know, the ED of Human Settlement is not a politician. He's a technocrat. So whatever response that is going to provide publicly, you know, he needs to, you know, to stay within his lane. But the reality is that, you know, there is no political will now in the department, and that's why we are seeing these things happening now, because, you know, people are frustrated and they are not receiving responses from the leadership in the city. You know, we appreciate that the mayor went there, but the mayor went there after you know, 3 you know, protests from the residents, and, you know, he went there, he responded to some of the things, he made commitments, to some of the things. But the reality is that he's the mayor, and he cannot be everywhere, at once. And we need the leadership within the department that will be able to take up, these issues and address them and face them, on daily basis, so that they are able to report back to the executive mayor. So it was unfortunate that the residents of the Kloof Hostel went on the street 3 times before the leadership of the city could go and listen to them.
So from someone who was on the inside, let's talk about the capacity, for example, for the city to be the management agent. Is it able to do that? What is involved there?
Well, the capacity is there. In the city of Johannesburg, you've got Johannesburg Social Housing Company that manage social houses and developments in the city. So the capacity is there. You've got your Johannesburg Property Company that manages, the properties of the city. So the capacity within the city is there. So it can't be that there is no capacity. I mean, we employed Joshko to manage, quite a number of projects in the city, and they've been doing it very well because they have capacity. Your Johannesburg Property Company, they've been doing very well because they do have capacity internally.
Yeah. In terms of infrastructure planning, and when we are adding these various units and the ones that are still going to be built, for example, if you look at the wastewater treatment systems within the city, will they be able to handle this?
Well, remember, when you plan, you take into cognizance all those, components. So you can't plan, without taking into consideration, the bulk infrastructure and the capacity that you have. I'll make a practical example. In the deep south of Johannesburg, your Orange Farm side, there are no development taking place because there is an issue of the sewer capacity. So whenever you plan for a development, you take all those things into consideration. But the problem that we have in the city of Johannesburg is non-response by the provincial government when it comes, to assistance in terms of planning, and making resources available. Because when the city of Johannesburg plans and put in money for infrastructure, they do not then receive, any grants, to top up what they have in the city, so there is no complement from the human settlements in the province, and that's why the delays in the development of hostels, because whatever city that has planned to do, but the province still needs to commit itself, and the province has spent quite a lot of money planning, appointing PRTs and all those, and I heard it alluding to that fact that the province has appointed another PRTs. In the previous financial year, there were PRTs appointed. In the previous financial year, I think, for quite a long time now, province is forever appointing for planning, for socio-economic surveys, counting people and doing all those things. In each and every financial year, that's what they do.
And is that money, are those PRTs being paid? Is the city paid?
Well, they are paying them, and that is and that is our concern, and that has always been my concern, even when I was still in the department. And I remember asking the MEC, to set up a political tax team and a technical tax team so that we are able to deal and arrest, those processes, because they are not helping the residents in hostel. When the city is doing something and the province is duplicating, the very same thing. These hostels belongs to the city. And the city needs to plan and receive grants from the province so that they are able, to commence with the developments. But it is not happening in the city of Johannesburg, and that is the problem. Province is spending a lot of money in planning. They are forever planning, and they are spending billions of rands in planning, and those billions of rands must be converted into units so that we are able to allocate our people into those houses.
Yeah. What happened to the decision you mentioned earlier on of converting those units into RDPs?
Well, we converted them. I'm expecting them to be allocated to residents as RDP giveaway houses. Once we have done with the upgrade of the sewer capacity at Dube and Midlands hostels, and once we have done with the upgrading of bulk infrastructure at the Kloof Hostel, those units must be allocated, because we converted the mayoral committee that was led by the late former Mayor Jeff Mapubu. Converted those houses into RDP giveaway houses. And we communicated that to the residents, including those at Jablani Hostel. And I was told that people of the tenants at Javelin Hostels are still receiving the statements from Joshua. You know, even after these units were converted into RDP giveaway houses.
Now, in terms of the registered hostel dwellers who are registered for houses, was that audit conducted in your time?
Well, we did, but what happened, you know, and it's so unfortunate that this happened to hostel residents. When they applied for houses in, I think it was 2006 or 2007, when I was still young, I was still in school. But I remember because I was already at Dube Hostel, staying there with my mother. They went on to apply for houses when the development started. But on the system, it does not reflect as applicants. It reflects as people that have been allocated to houses. So it's not only that their subsidies were approved. It says they've got houses in hostels. And that's the challenge that they have, because they cannot benefit anywhere else except in hostels where they are staying. So there are identified beneficiaries within the hostels who are waiting patiently so to be allocated to these houses, because they will never benefit anywhere else. My mother went to KwaZulu-Natal, she retired, she went back home, but in KZN she is not going to be, she's not going to qualify for any government subsidy, because in the records of human settlements, she has a house at the hostel.
Do you have any, I suppose, faith in this process now actually being carried out? Because the people of Deep Kloof are saying, well, we are being promised right now, but until we actually see this promise in hand, we are actually not hopeful that anything will happen.
Well, I'm also waiting for the meeting of the Premier. And I'm happy because the Mayor was honest with the residents. You know, he did not play politics in the gallery, to be appreciated and to be loved by the residents at Deep Kloof. You know, he was very honest with them. We are going to wait for the Premier to come down to the residents of Deep Kloof and commit himself, and to the realistic commitments and see if the development is actually going to take place. Because commitments, in fact, were actually made by the Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, who was the MBC at the time. He made commitments. Unfortunately, he left the office too early and nothing happened afterwards. But we are hoping that when the Premier gets there, then something will start moving on the ground where we will see the actual development. In fact, I had the meeting with the Minister. We agreed on the approach. Unfortunately, I left the office. I don't know what happened after that. But we had agreed with the Minister, because the Minister was there. She went there. She has pictures of the condition and the structures of the Kloof Hostel. And she was also worried when we met with her discussing the issues of hostel. And she said to me, well, I understand, MMC, you want to develop all hostel, but I want us to start with the Kloof. Because what I have in my phone as pictures, does not give me, a peaceful sleep. And we need to make sure that we develop the Kloof. But I don't know what happened, because I left the office and I think, it faded along the way. And I think that commitment, needs to come back, and that engagement with the Minister needs to be, restarted, so that they are also able to commit some funds at the national level to augment what the province will then, make available for the residents of the Kloof to receive, decent and dignified houses.
Mr. Mabaso, I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on. Mlungisi Mabaso, former City of Johannesburg Human Settlements MMC, now councillor in that metro, representing the IFP.